Hello everyone, Kirby1 here, and we're back. New year, new turn. It's a bit late in the start of the new year, but we'll just pretend like it's still Chinese New Year. I don't know, I'm not paying attention. But anyways, last turn that we were covering, we left off on a tiny bit of a cliffhanger. Were we going to be able to take Agartha? Weren't we going to be able to take Agartha? Let's just go straight to Agartha because the Agartha player has broken siege again. And as we're going to see this time, we got a slight bit of different strategy. The one thing that he hasn't tried yet, which is basically solo thugging with Mr. Spelunk. And let's see how it goes. So he does a script of Fire Shield, a bunch of other stuff to toughen him up, and it's pretty good. The Golem Crafter, who is fluffing, is also going to get knocked out. We've got some arrows flying in that are going to entangle him, but other than that, he's pretty tanky, but not quite tanky enough in this version of the replay. These Carrion Furies smack him around pretty hard, even in spite of the Fire Shield. They just do a lot of damage. However, that's not really how it worked out in the original version of this game. Because in the original version of this game, he won and he killed a lot of things on his Fire Shield. Most of these were direct kills from the stuff that he killed from Fire Shield and smacked them around a bit as well. But the rest of them are all the manikins that just automatically dissolve at the end of the battle. And we are beaten off his capital by this strategy. And so, in addition to that, all of our mages retreat. And as I mentioned, from what I was anticipating, I did get to retreat to basically all the provinces around except for this one, because I took them all back, and what I took them back with was basically very, very minimal thugs and stuff like that. Now, in each of these different cases, the dryads got sniped by things. This one got pelted with arrows, and this one, I believe some people snuck around after the buffing cycle. Yeah, there were elephants, but they didn't really do that much. Yeah, actually in this particular version of the replay, she ran off the field, but she was killed. And here, we actually just double Carrion Lord thugged. And the reason is because these guys actually, they play off of each other pretty well. If you take one that is a twice-borned pan, and one that is a summoned version, the summoned version can then do the blessing for the two of them, while the other one just has his paths. And so yeah, plus because even with my larger bless, they are size 5, you fit to a square unless they happen to get unlucky and spawn next to a tree. But these guys didn't, so they can fluff each other pretty well. So in any event, we did manage to stave off most of the mage losses. I say most because there were so many mages in this stack right here and commanders that a few of them in the retreat did actually fail and die in the retreat just because there was one. So there's a Hierophant that died. We also had a Dryad Hag, but most irritatingly, our Blue Flame was killed, which is the one kobold that I've summoned this entire game. Just happened to be here and happened to retreat and die in this one province right here. So maybe I should have cared about taking that after all. So yeah, we lost almost 1,000 carrion chaff to this. Now, a lot of Sagittarian carcasses also burned themselves up on the Fire Shield after they used up their ammunition for their carrion bow. Sagittarian carcasses can get really, really susceptible to Fire Shield because they also have a hoof attack in addition to their sleep vines. They just have a lot of attacks that they dish out. We also lost 18 of our 30 Carrion Furies, which is probably the hardest hit right there. Aside from that, we have stormed this fort, and this fort was successful. A couple of other mages lost just from the arrows and things like residual hits from Holy Avenger. But the storming was overall successful. Our usual trick of trying to trample over the fort defenders is not going to work because Pale Ones are just big enough that they can body a Minotaur. And so then some Magma Children come in afterward, as well as some Elementals, Earth Elementals, Fire Elementals. And they plug the gap a little bit while stones rain down and do quite a lot of damage. But eventually, there were just too many, and they spill through, overwhelm the minor summoned stuff, and just knock these guys out. So we still take it. Another 170 losses there. And we have quite a few thugs now roaming around here. These were some more thugs that we are sending underwater. And our basic kit is taking advantage of their 0 encumbrance by giving them big black steel tower shields for very high defense. Or I should say parry. That will up their protection for when they get that parry result pretty high, and giving them all frost brands and stuff like that. Now in this case, because I didn't send a summoned Carrion Lord, I just gave them flasks of holy water to cut back on their script a little bit. And aside from that, we also have some fighting in the underground. We have a massive doom stack of another 1,000 Carrion right here, and another almost 600-700 actually not just Carrion, but a bunch of stuff. So we've got Clockwork Horrors, we've got Minotaurs as well. So this is a full army right here, and we're intent on taking this. Just going to straight up storm the castle with what we've got here. Some moss bodies, regrowths, and yeah, it doesn't look like we have a Foul Vapors caster, but I think because of everything that he's sent up to the surface layer, there's not going to be a lot down here. So yeah, and then we got onto this fort, which we had trouble with earlier because the amount of PD that was on here. But we still lost another 57. So in all, we've definitely lost over 1,000, probably about 1,100, 1,200 troops overall this turn, and that you can see that reflected in the army graph. It's a big boop right there. And I say big, it doesn't look that big, but when you considering 1,000 troops, this is pretty substantial. But it does also go some way to show how much I have at this point in the game, where this is over 1,000 troops, and this is what I still have in play aside from that. So even with those losses, and they are quite annoying and very frustrating after all of the other miscellaneous stuff that I had going on top of Agartha here, I was quite frustrated, and we're just gonna go straight back on top of his cap. And it is what it is, so can't be helped, but we're going to consolidate most of the mages here, I believe, and we're going to just send a thug group on top here to deal with his own thug, which this guy should be able to handle that probably pretty easily. And this guy will also help out. This one might be a little bit more difficult just because of the sleep vines causing some issues. But I'm actually consolidating most of my stuff here. I'm just going to try and go on top of his cap and hope he's not patrolling with his pretender, which if he is, you know, that might be a problem. But we're going to do that, and then we'll consolidate here and then form a second army to move out from there. Aside from that, yeah, we're just doing that kind of stuff. Bringing in more troops from our capital and picking them up along the way as we get them. I'm also recruiting a bunch, I've been recruiting a handful of these marrows just to plan for the underwater war. And we're bringing a large force onto this fort to eventually take that as well. So we're going to clear out everything that he has on the surface layer and then push once more for Agartha. And so, yeah, that was a bit of a setback and very unfortunate, but we're moving forward. One of the things that I can use as a tool to go ahead and go over some of the things that I was planning on doing in the game is just the national overview. And actually I'm going to sort by nature mages because there was one other thing that I wanted to cover once I find it. Right here. In this province, we have planned to cast Mother Oak. And I think we are casting with just the minimal cast, 50 gems. So, yeah, since nobody else has claimed it yet, and there are literally no other globals, we're going to go for it. Some of the other things that you can see as well are our forging plans. We're going to switch up and add a couple of Demon Banes, and that is for giving to Carrion Lord thugs so that they don't murder themselves on the fire shields of really any nation that wants to cast that. And the reason is because Demon Bane gives fire resistance plus 15 and is pretty good weapon as far as just straight up stats. Most of the effectiveness of a Carrion Lord Thug is going to come from their fear aura and other things like that. So aside from that, we're also making a Bloodthorn for even more blood stuff if we want to do that. And then other things, doing some more Twice-Born stuff. We're adding in a couple of other forging gear. And yeah, so that is the main thing that we're going to be doing on this turn, and we'll move on to turn 43. So here we are with turn 43, and the hits keep coming, and that is because when we cast Mother Oak, our enchantment was overpowered by an existing global enchantment of somebody else casting Mother Oak on the same turn that I had just planned to do so, with obviously more than the 50 minimum cast that I was going to do, and that was Pelagia. And we can actually see where that is by clicking on it, and it goes straight here to the water layer. So that is pretty massive bummer for me. 50 nature gems down the drain, which I could have used for basically anything else, and instead wound up throwing in the trash. So I'm kind of bummed about that. That's sort of like ironic that it happened on the exact same turn. I really haven't been talking much, if at all, with any of the water nations, so there was no coordination with this. It was just like, hey, nope, fail. Now, the one good thing that we do get out of this turn, though, is that Agartha wants to attempt to take advantage of my strategic withdrawal and reconsolidation by magic phasing his super thug into what he saw was the largest concentration of my retreating group, and hoped to kill as many of them as he could, especially these guys, Carrion Furies. Fortunately for him, the thing that we saw last turn of the Carrion Furies just straight up bodying him instead of him surviving and fire shielding to death all of my Carrion actually does happen in this turn, and not just in that replay, but in real life too. So he magic phases onto me, kills 3 Carrion Furies, and promptly dies. So that's that problem taken care of. And because of that, I have decided to immediately take advantage of the situation and jump on him. And so we're sending about 600 guys right back onto his cap, and we are going to attempt to kill him for real this time in Agartha before he is able to recall his god. Now, he does have some Oracles of the Ancients left somewhere, probably either in his gap or on this layer. I'm not sure. Golem crafters will be able to summon things. There's some more golem crafters right there, which he is probably planning a big breakout right here. I might be able to deal with it. We'll see. I've got 600 manikins here, but the most important part is carrion growth from my prophet and a howl. And I think I would really have liked to bring a foul vapors to this battle as well, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So that's too bad, but it's probably going to be fine. Maybe. We'll see. I've usually been able to beat substantially smaller groups of his with my own armies. Speaking of which, we stormed this fort. Looks like 2 Dryad Hags got nuked by some boulders, but other than that, we managed to take this fort. I put the clockwork horrors in front actually this time, because having seen that the Minotaurs do not do as well, I decide to try and slice through them, and that works a little bit better. We do manage to get through the gate, and that will bring our numbers to bear. And these guys then manage to storm through, and we take it. A bit heavy on the losses for the clockwork horrors, but that is their job. We are also thugging here. We've got a big doom stack of random regular centaurs just roaming around, causing havoc. And other than that, back on the surface world, there's a lot of stuff in here, so this is still not broken. And, oh, I kept looking at this number. There's actually only 400 manikins here, so this is a little bit smaller group. I think it's probably going to still be fine. But we'll find out. And this was another 400 group, so yeah, whoops. But we are also going to send some guys into this fort as well. Storming here. 300 manikins. These guys are going to be up front and center and will take a lot of buffing here. But mostly it is to get enlarged. And then we're also putting in fire resistance, and because he's up front, venomous death is going to follow that as well. Yep, so that's that. But yeah, other than that, things are going all right. That loss of the 50 nature gems is probably the hardest blow of this turn, but at least we've taken care of the Pretender, which was the largest thorn in our side for the Agartha War, and we're going to be wreaking bloody vengeance on him in his capital. Aside from that, let's again go over the overview. Doing a bunch of Twiceborn. We're making a shield of meteoric iron, which is going to help with path boosting in battles. And a couple of dream spools for getting some gem conservation going on. Because I think our glamour income, it's alright, but we're going to be wanting to do some very expensive glamour stuff soon. As far as our research goes, we will be having Conjuration 8 this turn, which will be Fairy Court. So that's what we're aiming for, and because of that, we're going to want to not be spending as much of our glamour gems on battle stuff. So Doesn't look like we'll be able to do Fairy Court. No, we will. We'll be able to do Fairy Court this turn. So we'll have to have that in a forest somewhere. I believe, well, our Pretender can cast that. And if I recall correctly, she was here. Yeah, so she's not been smart enough to move into a forest, but we'll see where that comes out next turn, if I have planned that well, which I think I did. But again, this is a while ago, so hard to remember. Anyways, let's move on to turn 44. So turn 44, here we are, and another really rough turn in the war with Agartha, and we'll see why in a couple of battles. One of the things that we're continuing to do is thugging. This one is actually a really fun one as far as success stories go. The Carrion Lady and the Carrion Lord Twice-Born version pairing with each other is actually just a phenomenal grouping right here, because she's able to then do both the blessing and the reanimation, or the Carrion reanimation, which gives regeneration to both herself and the Carrion Lord, and they just pair very well together as far as paths go. But the Carrion Lady, when you twice-born them as well, has the Glamour path, which the Panic Apostates and the Carrion Lords do not have. So you can mix in actually quite a few other buffs that are really nice. Some of the things that the Death Glamour crosspath can do is even more fear aura, and then just other things like displacement as well, if you give them gems and things like that. So a lot of fun things that you can mix in for your buff script, and they just absolutely mulch through an infinite number of the Shark Tribe without caring. And yep, we're already up to 127 hit points and not a care in the world. But that's about the end of our happiness for this turn. Quite a few things wind up going wrong. The assault on the outside of the fortress of Bara, like I saw being planned, went not as well as I could have hoped. So we do put up Howl and we rush him. These guys actually, the Minotaurs, get pretty promptly obliterated by a lot of evocations from the Golem Crafters, and are not large enough to trample the Defenders of the Halls, who then are sitting around taking a lot of buffs. And we do not have a lot of strong chaff to follow alongside them. I don't think any Carrion Furies in this battle. So it's really just Manikins and the mages that we have, which didn't look like a lot of them are on advanced cast either. Yeah, we've got this one here. There's one that's on advanced cast, so that one. But other than that, as we've seen before, Defenders of the Halls actually do pretty well, pretty solidly in line matchup against Manikins. They will get fatigued out eventually, but they're just holding, and we've got a lot of Golem Crafters that are just deleting them right here. And the Bodyguard block is doing very well to keep the wolves off of the mages. So we wind up losing, and they break the siege. That was 13 more Golem Crafters, as you can see, doing the majority of the kills. And so that's another 400 chaff that is killed. And we don't lose any of the mages, it looks like, so that's not the end of the world. But it's another setback right here, unfortunately. Something that we'll have to deal with. And then in the storming of the fort in Green Harbor, we also are unsuccessful, and it turns out that what we have versus what he has is insufficient woefully insufficient. And there's a couple reasons for that, actually. We probably did bring some good stuff to the fight, but I think my scripting wound up being highly janky. And the reason is because these Sagittarians wind up moving forward. The reason they're moving forward is I believe they're scripting to either fire archers or fire rear or something like that. It turns out that the wall archers do not actually are not actually considered by the game to be archers. So when you script fire archers on your own archers, they will run in to get in range of whatever ranged things are in the back here. And they are very far back. So what winds up happening is the Sagittarian carcasses get up front in the gate and are now in the way of the things that I wanted to be clearing the gate, which would have been these Black Minotaurs and Carrion Furies. These guys are not quite as good at doing that as I would have liked if I had just had them scripted to fire. That might have been good. We also had a Phantasmal Knight that I just decided to try out just for funsies. And a couple of them, yeah, are going around and trying to get through the wall this way. They're alright. They do not the worst, but they're not sufficient at getting through. They're pretty tanky, though. This guy right here sits next to a tree, which, funnily enough, there was a tree in the gateway, which is probably blocking some of my own troop density here, especially because Sagittarian carcasses are size 6 now with my larger blast. So yeah, it's a pretty big debacle. I do not take the gate, and as a result of that, he has quite a few mages still, 4 Oracles of the Ancients that are just going to delete me with banishments. And yeah, we get driven off. So that's a bummer. Green Harbor remains. So yeah, there's a lot not going our way. Many manikins are being burned. And I don't know why I looked at that. But as far as the score graphs go, our as you can see, our army graph is bouncing up and down like crazy. So not quite finishing them off as speedily as I would have hoped. We're going to decide to send our thug group back onto his fort and see if we can take him that way. And then we'll figure out how we want to approach this block right here. Because he might do a couple things. He might decide to send this whole group right here, in which case he can threaten to either drive us off this fort or try and drive us off his cap again. Not clear what he wants to do quite yet. This one is probably going to be broken next turn because we've got another 600 siege strength here, but not a lot of actual chaff and troops here. Our heaviest hitters are going to be the Carrion Furies, but there's only 13 of them. And I think we're probably consolidating. Yeah, it looks like we're going to basically leave this alone and consolidate basically everything here. And we'll focus on taking his cap and then decide how we want to play with the rest of his group here. Other than that, whatever is retreated, we're deciding to pick up and consolidate wherever we can. Another thing that we actually wound up doing is, because of our overwhelming income disparity between us and Agartha, is we decided to just buy all of the mercenaries off of him last turn. So they're ours now. He is not going to be doing that silliness anymore. And we do have quite a massive income right now. And for all of our failures at continuing to gain new land on the surface layer, our income is still going up in spite of our pop kill. We are taking the underground layer without much resistance, so I think he's probably ceded that at this point for the most part. In fact, this massive group that we have here of almost 1,000 carrion, we're deciding to go and take this throne as well. And I think at this point I'm starting to eyeball what might be things that I can do to just straight up win the game. So I've decided to eliminate whatever random Yisian provinces he has on this layer, and I will put under threat as many other thrones as I can. There are a couple in the cave layer right here. There's one there and there's one there, which I can put under threat. And we are also putting our own forts under protection. Now the thing is with the kelp forts or the carrion forts is that you can actually cast them underwater in really any underwater province. So because of that, she had cast the kelp fort here, and I had remembered and then briefly forgotten that there is a pillar of life here, so I stacked it with undead and then was like, nope, that's dumb, we're not going to do that, we're just going to send them under here. And instead I'm buying a bunch of Triton Knights to beef up my walls here in case some of the water nations decide to come at me there, because they can actually come straight from the water layer here or through here. They can go all fully aquatic force to take this throne if they wanted to go the long way. And aside from that, that's my long-term play. In theory, I can win the game without having to actually kill Agartha, but for satisfaction's sake, we will be making our best effort to kill Agartha at this point. So that's the plan. Let's go over the national overview one more time. Not seeing anything right. Oh, there it is, Fairy Court. So we do wind up doing the Fairy Court, and that is right here in Amon Forest. So even though we got bumped out of here, we are going to be rebuilding our armies, and that will start with the Fairy Court. So what we had here is actually a Glamour 2 that we were able to boost up to Glamour 4, and we were able to do Fairy Court just barely from saving up our gems. So that will turn into a Unseelie Queen because we are casting it in a cold province. So we'll take a look at her in the next video, I think that'll be good enough for this video. 3 turns and a lot of dead, burnt carcasses. So wish us luck, and thank you for watching. See you next time.